Bishop J. Drew Sheard, a name once synonymous with strength, unity, and spiritual leadership, has just sent shockwaves through the Church of God in Christ. After decades of unwavering dedication, guiding millions with conviction and grace, he's walking away. But not in celebration, in heartbreak. This isn't just a resignation, it's the result of a betrayal so deep, so personal, that it's shattered one of the Church's most unshakable pillars. Behind the scenes, something broke. Something powerful enough to silence a voice that once led with authority and love. What happened within the walls of COGIC? What truth drove this spiritual giant to tears and ultimately to leave behind everything he helped build? The answers are more devastating, and more revealing, than anyone expected. Stay with us, because this story exposes a side of church leadership that was never meant to be seen. Bishop J. Drew Sheard, a man of vision, spiritual authority, and unwavering influence, has spent his life lifting up others, building communities, and carrying the full weight of COGIC's legacy on his shoulders. For decades, he stood as a beacon of hope and leadership. So when the shocking news broke that he was stepping down, suddenly, emotionally, and without warning, the church world was left in stunned silence. But this isn't a peaceful retirement. It's something far darker. Sources close to the bishop confirm he was betrayed from within, an internal blow so brutal that it left him blindsided, devastated, and questioning the very leadership structure he once helped fortify. Now, the truth is beginning to surface. Behind the pulpit and praise was a storm of politics, power struggles, and personal attacks. In this video, we pull back the curtain on what really happened, from ruthless boardroom power plays and silence at the top, to emotional breakdowns behind closed doors. You'll hear the reactions from church leaders, stunned family members, and loyal followers who never saw this coming. What forced one of the most powerful men in COGIC history to walk away in pain? The answer will shake you. Why is Bishop J. Drew Sheard's inner circle fracturing, and what does this division mean for the future of COGIC itself? This isn't just a leadership transition. This is a spiritual earthquake, shaking the very core of one of the largest Pentecostal movements in the world. If you've ever admired Bishop Sheard's strength, if you've ever placed faith in the integrity of church leadership, you need to know what truly happened behind the scenes, because this story reveals more than betrayal. It exposes a deep, painful rift that could forever change the course of the Church of God in Christ. Long before the heartbreak, before the silence, before the headlines that left a community reeling, there was a man named John Drew Sheard. Born into a powerful spiritual lineage, raised under the guidance of his father, Bishop John H. Sheard, young Drew was steeped in holiness, obedience, and an unshakable devotion to God's call. But make no mistake, his rise wasn't gifted to him. He didn't inherit power. He earned it. Through decades of tireless service, sacrifice, and vision, Bishop Sheard built a legacy rooted in unity and purpose. And now, that legacy stands at a crossroads. He began as a humble pastor in Detroit, leading Greater Emmanuel Institutional COGIC with unwavering passion, transforming a local congregation into a national spiritual powerhouse. His preaching wasn't just commanding, it was soul-stirring. His music ministry echoed across generations, and his leadership inspired millions. In 2021, as the church grappled with internal uncertainty, Bishop J. Drew Sheard rose to the occasion. He was elected presiding bishop of COGIC, becoming the face of a denomination with over 6 million members worldwide. For many, he embodied a new era, firmly rooted in tradition, yet unafraid of progress. Under his leadership, outreach programs flourished, the church's digital footprint expanded, and sensitive issues were met with compassion and courage. Whether delivering thunderous sermons to thousands or quietly comforting a grieving family, Bishop Sheard balanced fire and humility like no other. Outside the pulpit, his marriage to gospel legend Karen Clark was more than a union, it was a symbol of legacy. Together, they stood as pillars of Black Christian culture, admired not just for their talent, but for their faith and resilience. So when whispers of trouble began to surface, that Bishop Sheard was pulling back from leadership, skipping critical meetings, and silently battling an emotional storm, many simply couldn't accept it. How could a man so steady, so iconic, be quietly unraveling behind closed doors? Yet the signs were there. And now, as the truth unfolds, the church must reckon with what it means when even its strongest voices begin to fade. Why could a man who gave his lifestyles to the church all of a sudden walk away what could probably damage someone who had carried so many for as long as will screen inside the next phase? Everything modified whilst betrayal crept in from the internal. For years Bishop J. Drew Sheard led with confidence and integrity, believing that the leadership surrounding him shared his vision, values and religion. However, as insiders now display, the betrayal that broke him didn't come from outsiders, it got here from the very humans he depended on. Maximum his inner circle within COGIC's fashionable board. In keeping with multiple credible sources near national church management, tensions have been quietly building backstage for over 12 months. Disagreements, approximately finances, organizational path or even theological awareness, began to floor disagreements that weren't just spirited debates but excessive at the back of closed doors. Power struggles at the center of the warfare, a controversial restructuring proposal that might have shifted authority far from the presiding bishop, a flow that Bishop Sheard reportedly resisted. One insider claims he felt blindsided. They wanted to show him right into a discerned head. He said, "You don't get to rewrite many years of sacrifice with one vote." Even as Bishop Sheard persevered to maintain a peaceful professional the front publicly, those near him say he became increasingly more remote. Friends observed a trade in his tone, guarded, weary, and at instances completely silent whilst asked approximately board matters. However, it wasn't just political betrayal, it was private. An established colleague, a person Bishop Sheard mentored for years, allegedly aligned himself with a small faction, aiming to push the presiding bishop into early resignation. A few speculated the motive changed into ambition, others say jealousy. Regardless of the cause, the impact changed into devastating. At the back of the scenes, Bishop Sheard reportedly observed personal communications, emails and messages among board participants that puzzled his leadership and mocked his emotional reaction to a recent own family contamination. Yes, mocked. That became the moment the shift befell. Resources say that when analyzing the one's messages, Bishop Sheard locked himself in his office for almost 4 hours, refusing to speak with anybody, together with his assistant and his spouse Karen. One staff member from the national headquarters in Memphis reported, "We knew something had broken." Interior of him, he wasn't irritated, he became just quiet, too quiet. That man carried the load of a denomination, and all at once it turned into like a person had yanked the ground out from beneath him. Over the following days, Bishop Sheard reportedly commenced canceling speak-me engagements, delegating key obligations and withdrawing from vital selection-making conferences. Folks that tried to reach him said they have been politely declined or absolutely left out, after which the bombshell hit in a private management call attended through only a few trusted advisors. Bishop Sheard introduced that he would be stepping away from lively obligations as presiding bishop, mentioning emotional misery, non-secular exhaustion and what he known as a betrayal that cut too deep to ignore. He ended the decision with one line: "Nobody expected to listen. If I cannot consider the ones closest to me, I cannot lead them." But right here's in which it receives even greater painful. COG leadership has yet to publicly cope with the betrayal. No legitimate research, no public apology, just silence, and that silence, it is what is dividing the COGIC network now greater than ever. While Bishop J. Drew Sheard quietly started out stepping far from public ministry, many thought he could return after a season of rest. However, when first woman Karen Clark Sheard, gospel icon, powerhouse vocalist and wife of over 30 years, finally broke her silence, it became clean this wasn't only a transient damage, this changed into a deep non-secular wound. And Karen, she wasn't preserving lower back in an extraordinary Instagram live session that has since been reshared across infinite structures. Karen, regarded teary-eyed, dressed in a easy black hoodie, no makeup, no glam, only a grieving spouse protecting back scene pain. Her voice shook as she addressed the rumors and silence surrounding her husband's sudden departure from his COGIC management position. This man gave everything to the church, each overdue night time, each flight, every sacrifice, and they broke him. She paused, holding again tears. Y'all do not know what it is like to see the strongest guy you recognize query if he failed God, while genuinely he was failed by means of man. Lovers and churchgoers flooded the comments in assist, stunned to witness such raw honesty from a first lady generally known for her poise and discretion. But what observed next gave a clearer picture of the way deeply the betrayal had affected their whole circle of relatives. Karen went on to describe how Bishop Sheard had stopped praying aloud at home, something he had performed every day for decades. He had grown distant, quiet and withdrawn, now not from his faith but from the group he once gave the entirety to. He didn't lose his faith in God, Karen stated. However, his coronary heart is damaged by the humans he thought were standing with him. However, it wasn't just about church politics. Karen Stay discovered that the betrayal got here at a time while their circle of relatives changed into already dealing with personal loss and fitness problems. She shared for the primary time publicly that one of Bishop Sheard's closest family members were severely ill just weeks earlier than the internal fallout started out, and as opposed to support from fellow leaders they have been met with coldness, distance and backdoor maneuvers to strip Bishop Sheard of influence. Karen even hinted that certain board members had been pushing for generational alternate, insinuating that Bishop Sheard's legacy determined became too tied to lifestyle. They smiled in our face and whispered behind our backs, she said, and my husband still showed up and served like not anything was wrong. That's actual power. But it turned into her final phrases that dispatched chills through the church world. This wasn't simply disrespect, it became spiritual sabotage. The impact of Karen's statement changed into immediately social media exploded. Gospel artists, pastors, or even secular celebrities reposted the clip expressing unity with Bishop Sheard and calling out. The silent response from the COGIC board. Twitter threads trended with hashtags like Spark a Stand with Sheard and KIC responsibility. Traumatic transparency from church management. Nevertheless, no legit announcement from COGIC's national board, no denial, no rationalization, and that silence, it was starting to sense like complicity. However, the story does not stop there. Whilst news of Bishop J. Drew Sheard's emotional go out first hit the public, many predicted the Church of God in Christ to problem a rapid and clean statement, maybe a tribute, perhaps an explanation, maybe just a second of silence to renown a long time of management. Instead, there was not anything. That silence ignited a firestorm. A few of the COGIC network, a community that had for years located its consider in Bishop Sheard as a symbol of each spiritual power and organizational balance. What accompanied within the days and weeks after his quiet departure wasn't simply hypothesis. It turned into rebellion. Church participants from Detroit to Dallas, Memphis to Milwaukee started posting movies, TikToks, Facebook Lives and passionate open letters demanding solutions. One pastor from Ohio went viral when he preached a sermon titled, "Whilst the Shepherd is Wounded," clearly referencing Sheard's situation. In his message he requested the haunting query, what happens to the flock when the management lets the shepherd bleed out in silence? COGIC contributors began tagging board members, emailing district superintendent and starting petitions online with one change. Org marketing campaign titled Reinstate and Recognize Bishop Sheard, gathering over 30,000 signatures in less than every week. What made topics worse, some board participants have been reportedly blocking off people who puzzled the silence, simplest fueling suspicions that something darker turned into being hidden. In the meantime, nearby church buildings began organizing vigils, prayer calls and fasts in aid of Bishop Sheard. A few church moms wept at some point of tales referencing how they'd watched him develop from a younger preacher right into an amazing bishop, and now they were watching him walk away wounded. COGIC teens, businesses in particular in city areas spoke out as well, not just in protection of Sheard, however, towards the institutional politics that allowed this to manifest on TikTok. Younger individuals created explainer films breaking down what they consider to be a strength coup backstage, claiming that the scenario meditated deeper systemic issues within church management. In one of the most emotional moments to head viral, a teenage lady from Georgia stood up for the duration of her church testimony carrier and stated, "Bishop Sheard is the reason I got here. Return to church now, y'all. Permit him walk out. Damaged disgrace on whoever did that." Those were not simply outbursts, they have been a collective cry, a religious reckoning for many. This became the instant the veil turned into lifted, while the politics in the back of the pulpit became plain, and that they were not having it. But possibly the maximum damning blow came whilst more than one respected bishops and superintendents commenced breaking ranks, liberating nameless statements of help for Bishop Sheard. Whilst none named names, the message turned into clear. What befell to Bishop Sheard changed into unjust. He did now not depart because he failed, he left because he was failed. All of a sudden the communique shifted. This wasn't just about one man's exit, it changed into approximately the cracks inside the foundation of one in all the biggest Pentecostal denominations in the global, and the humans have been looking ready. Traumatic extra. But while the network persevered to roar, Bishop Sheard remained silent until a non-public message surfaced that might supply anyone chills. Just when the firestorm surrounding Bishop J. Drew Sheard's exit from COGIC regarded find it irresistible couldn't get greater severe. A private voice recording leaked online and it changed the whole lot. It wasn't a legit press release, it wasn't a social media post, it turned into uncooked, it turned into real, and it became never intended to head public. According to reviews, the voice memo became at first sent by means of Bishop Sheard to a small institution of trusted nearby pastors, men he had mentored and ministered with for many years. The message was supposed to be personal, a final phrase of encouragement earlier than he stepped again from the chaos. However, one of these pastors, both out of problem or conviction, quietly leaked it to a COGIC discussion group on Facebook. Inside hours the audio was circulating across WhatsApp chains, YouTube channels and Twitter threads, and what Bishop Sheard stated left hundreds in tears. Within the message his voice turned into rather tired, subdued. Long past became the commanding tone, and COGIC contributors had been used to hearing it. Convocation in its location, a damaged man seeking to hold directly to his faith at the same time as letting cross of the whole lot else to folks that still love me, who nevertheless believe within the God in me. I thank you. I by no means notion I'd be the only writing the very last web page before I desired to. However, I'm worn out now, not of serving but of being surrounded by means of silence when I needed power. He went on to explain the betrayal, now not by way of name but with piercing honesty. I gave my existence to this church, I overlooked birthdays, anniversaries, my own recuperation, all due to the fact I assumed in this calling. And once I wished my brothers to stand up for me, they stood down at one factor. His voice cracked. I watched humans I trusted foe like they didn't see me wreck. That's the component that hurt the most now, not the schemes, however. The silence. But then, as though returning to his pastoral coronary heart, Bishop Sheard ended the message with a benediction, not sour but broken and blessed. If my stepping away brings peace to this church, then I'll carry that cross. However, by no means overlook this. I served with love and I leave with love. That very last line, I leave with love, was become a viral hashtag. In a single day, I go away with love started trending across gospel platforms, appearing on Instagram tales, merch, mock-ups and tributes from fellow leaders and lovers alike. The memo turned into later showed as authentic by using pastors who had acquired it firsthand. Nonetheless, no matter the overpowering public support and media attention, the COGIC preferred board remained completely silent. No reaction to the leak, no acknowledgement of its content material, no longer even an attempt at harm control. To many, this most effective confirmed what they feared all along, that the betrayal became real, that the silence turned into strategic, that Bishop Sheard's ache had been swept underneath the rug to guard strength, not human beings. But the church cannot move forward without truth. And the silence at the top is being changed with noise at the grassroots degree, noise that isn't always loss of life down. And yet even in the chaos, one query now looms larger than ever: what does the destiny maintain? No longer only for Bishop Sheard, however, for COGIC itself, with Bishop J. Drew Sheard stepping away in silence and the Church of God in Christ's management refusing to confront the betrayal hidden. The entire denomination now stands at a painful crossroads. This is now not just about a bishop's resignation, this is a non-secular reckoning. For decades, Bishop Sheard was the stabilizing force in the back of COGIC's cutting-edge growth, a leader who embraced tradition but wasn't afraid to evolve, a person who stood between chaos and order with quiet energy. He turned into the glue that held the denomination collectively at some point of some of its maximum turbulent moments, from generational leadership gaps to internal strength struggles, countrywide tragedies to theological debates. Now that glue is long gone and the cracks are beginning to show, church contributors from every jurisdiction are worrying greater transparency nearby. Leaders are being asked to address their congregations and talk brazenly. Approximately what happened: a few are refusing to stay silent any longer, although it method risking their own positions. COGIC children ministries are moving, many are shifting away from blind loyalty and turning toward real responsibility. They're asking bold questions: who will lead with integrity, who will guard the legacy of individuals who gave their lives to this church? Do we permit some other leader fall without lifting them up? But amid all of the pain, one element is clear: Bishop Sheard's effect may not vanish together with his position. In fact, assets near him say that at the same time as he stepped far away from reliable duties, he is not walking far away from ministry. Not totally. He's reportedly thinking about launching an independent mentorship initiative, one that could recognition on training younger pastors out of doors, the paperwork far away from church politics and rooted only in biblical fact and proper leadership. He's additionally been spending extra time with his spouse Karen, leaning into their own family, and according to insiders, Eventually recuperation he gave the entirety, said one family friend. Now he is learning to receive again. There may be speak of a book, probable even a documentary, and most importantly a public letter that Bishop Sheard is said to be drafting, a private final message to the human beings of COGIC, not out of revenge now, not to show, however, to heal, because even after being betrayed he still loves the church, the people, the calling, the faith.